right, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to see what we can do to change the game this afternoon. That is what we want to continue the CeBIT Global Conferences with this afternoon, game-changing technologies. This is a fast-moving world full of disruptive innovations that can change the face of a business or industry in the blink of an eye. So we've invited several executives today to come here to center stage to talk to you because they represent game-changing businesses. So the clock is ticking, the data is getting bigger. Please help me welcome our first speaker. He's got an idea to talk about. The Vice President, Principal Analyst serving CIOs at Forrester Research. Give a big round of applause for Mr. Ted Shadler. Have fun.
Hello, everybody. Waiting for the music to die down. Hi. Thanks for coming. Feel free to move on up if you want to be with your brethren. We got about 20 minutes here to talk about something that I believe is vital. In fact, I wish all 400 to 500,000 CeBIT people were here because what I'm going to talk about affects every single one of them. Kind of bizarre because we think we've been doing mobile for a long time, but we've been doing mobile in a very thin way. You might think of it as lipstick on a pig. We've taken this very thin veneer of what a company is and does, and how it operates, and we put a little mobile face on it. But in point of fact, mobile is more disruptive to how companies operate than the web was or than PCs were. It is the most disruptive change to companies because you got the phone in your pocket. Because it's with you at every moment of every day. So we call that the mobile mind shift, and we believe and we know that over the next 10 or 15 years, companies are undergoing a mobile mind shift. And in fact, mobile is the tail that wags the business dog. Starts out being a tiny little website, starts out being email on a BYOD device. That is nothing. That's chump change. That's just the start. It winds up re-engineering the entire technology portfolio. It winds up re-engineering the product line through connected products. It winds up re-engineering your sales process, whether directly from employees, empowering employees to engage with customers, or directly to customers as they bring their phones into your store. It changes your business model. If you can monetize a mobile moment, a moment in time when somebody is willing to engage with you on their phone, that can change your business model dramatically. That's certainly what's going on at Nest thermostats, for example, and one of the reasons Google is willing to spend $3.2 billion for Nest. So let's break this down by starting with a very human reaction. This is St. Peter's Square. Pope Francis is about to walk out, in fact, has just walked out onto the balcony. Now, if you go back 8 years, there was no mobile device there, maybe a flip phone. And now people are experiencing this event through their mobile device. They are experiencing a mobile moment. They have undergone a mobile mind shift, an expectation that they can get what they want, capture what they want, accomplish what they want anywhere in their immediate context, their physical context, and their moment of need. There's no waiting. There's no lag time between what I want and what I think I should be able to get. And if a company isn't there doing that, then they've missed an opportunity. And into that opportunity, which winds up being very large, are flowing innovators and entrepreneurs. So when we think about mobile, we tend to think about the device and the application. But what's really happening is a change in somebody's expectation to get what they want in that moment of need. And that only happens when an entire company puts its resources behind that application experience. The platforms, the technology platforms, the business processes, the way the people execute have to support that mobile moment. This will drive the biggest change in companies since the PC. So when you look at the expectation change, and we measure this at Forrester, one of the great things about Forrester is our ability to go find out what people are actually doing and how they feel about it. And so this expectation that I'm going to have you as a mobile website in my pocket, that I'm going to get a mobile app, 42%, and that application is going to know something about my physical location and shortcut a process for me, do something more valuable because you know where I am, is already at that high level of 23%. But that's just the start. We've got this growing adoption and use. And one of the gating factors, and I'll say I've experienced this myself in Europe, and this shows up in our data in Europe as well, that a mobile device is the starting point, and we're going to triple the number of devices over the next 6 or 7 years. You'll see the forecast here. And in tablets, it'll grow much faster. But the gating factor is Wi-Fi and cellular. So high-performance LTE networks, certainly not available everywhere, and Wi-Fi, certainly not available everywhere globally, and certainly not available everywhere here in Europe. Once you've got that wireless access, then you get this massive behavior change. People don't wait, they go online immediately. So the number of apps today is about 1 million apps in the App Store. That will easily grow to 10 million apps over the next 5 years. Now, to give you a little bit of context here, there are 200 million public websites, 200 million, each of which may have 5 applications on it, 5 major application areas. So that's 1 billion potential applications in the public-facing world. And internally, for internal private websites, it might be that many again. So when you look at 1 million apps, it's a very small number. Even 10 million apps compared to 1 billion is a very small number. So as apps get easier to build and deploy, they become more valuable, more embedded in somebody's life, in their day, in their work, we'll see more applications. I think that's a conservative estimate, by the way. And then lastly, and this is a forecast that my colleague John McCarthy has done. John is intrinsically embedded in the material that you're going to see here today, is this forecast of re-engineering. When you look at the spend on re-engineering of core business processes and capabilities, it amounts to almost $190 billion by 2017. 1/4 of that is spent externally, spent on IT service providers, on process re-engineering, on stuff that drives the tech economy. And 3/4 of that is spent internally in change management, in labor, in technology implementation, in integration, and refactoring. There's a tremendous amount of platform refactoring that goes on, but that's a big number. When you compare it against the roughly 3 billion people that will have smartphones, it's $60 per user for every one of those smartphone users. But even more than that, and this is a forecast of my colleague Andy Bartels, it will affect $1.3 trillion in the IT economy, and McKinsey estimates $25 trillion in global GDP. So we are just getting going on the impact here. As I said, there's a gap between I want, I get, that most big companies are not fulfilling. And so entrepreneurs are actually creating the mobile mind shift, the expectation, and then they're fulfilling that expectation. And so 3 quick stories here. This is Russ Hall. Russ is a taxi driver in London. He says, I've got taxi in my blood. He's married to a taxi driver. His father was a taxi driver. I think his grandfather was a taxi driver. And he saw what was going on with mobile as an ability to connect a driver to a passenger. Now, in the US, the big sort of story in this market is Uber. And in fact, Uber is remarkable because they're changing the business model for taxi services. They actually have variable pricing based on demand and supply. But Russ Hall targets a different customer. Russ Hall targets taxi drivers. Taxi drivers are looking for rides, and they want to maximize their revenue by shortening the wait time. So what Russ has done is he's really fundamentally altered the market for taxi services by matching passengers to drivers. Now, you've seen this, we have it in Germany as well, but Russ has a very clear model here. He says, if I can provide just enough functionality in that moment of need, that mobile moment, to match a driver to a passenger, then everybody wins. The passenger wins and the driver wins. Another example here, and we've got hundreds of examples, but another one I wanted to mention in a completely different industry. This is Max Moen. He is head of online banking at ING Bank in Netherlands. And for him, the big outcome of mobile banking is a 3x improvement in logins. So people are 3 times as likely to hit his website, in this case his mobile app, for banking services than they are to hit the website itself. Well, that deeper engagement, that richer, more continuous, more constant relationship he's able to provide, the more mobile moments in somebody's financial day he's able to serve in, increases his customer satisfaction. His net promoter scores are 10 points higher for his mobile banking customers than they are for his web banking customers. So he tackles the mobile moments in somebody's financial life. And to do that, he's made huge investments in technology platforms, in business processes, and in new kinds of capabilities like content. He's hired people to create financial content that's relevant to his mobile banking customer. And the reason he does that is that content brings people back into the application. So extremely valuable mobile moment he can create through content that results in a much stronger banking relationship. This is Adam Brotman. He's a senior vice president of digital at Starbucks. Adam, of course, deals with their web, he deals with promotions, he deals with mobile, but also he deals with store operations. Because if Adam rolls out a new piece of functionality on the Starbucks loyalty mobile app, the barista in the store has to be ready for it. And so it's not just a standalone business. Digital for Starbucks is embedded throughout the entire business. And that is, in fact, what happens with mobile. Mobile breaks down these barriers in channel because you've got the device with you at all times. So all three of these innovators and entrepreneurs have one thing in common, which is they target these mobile moments in which they can provide a service and also get value back to the firm. So I'd want you to remember that term mobile moment because it's a way to make what's intangible, mobile service or mobile strategy, something very tangible. When in someone's day at work or at home or on a shopping experience can I provide a service to them? So these mobile moments are a point in time and space when somebody's willing to pull out a smartphone or a tablet to get what they want in their immediate context. The mobile mind shift is made up of mobile moments. The mobile moment happens right there in the person's mind, in the expectation. But the hard work, the $189 billion to be spent, happens here. The biggest complaint I hear from marketers, from heads of field operations, from heads of field sales, so these are employee scenarios, from consumer sales, is I can't get to the data. The people that own the business outcomes say, I can't get to the data. The data is locked away. It's behind the firewall. It's trapped behind some API that may be good enough for web, but it's not good enough for mobile. So that's where the hard work lies. And every one of these companies that I've mentioned has tackled this problem head on. They have built an end-to-end, a whole stack solution to mobile, because that's the only way to deliver something valuable. It has to tie into those transaction systems. So let's make it specific. In the travel industry, if you do a map, there it is. If you do a map of somebody's travel day, 2 days before, 2 hours before, flight time, post and post, we have all of these moments in which a traveler might engage. Let me blow it up a little bit so you can see it. So, for example, I'm booking a reservation, changing, requesting upgrade, reserving seat, check-in, confirm departure time, all these things we all do. Now, in each one of those moments, there's a context. There's a physical context. I know where someone is. There's an emotional context. I also know what they're looking for and what I'm trying to accomplish. So I can really analyze the potential for the moment as well as the outcome of that moment. And that's a way to, again, make the intangible something very, very specific. You can all figure out what mobile moments matter to your customers and matter to your employees. Every one of us can sit down today and write those things down. What we need to then go do is to analyze them, to really assess which customers, and what their likelihood to use the service is, which employees, and how often during the day, and what is their physical situation. So when we think about context, and this is something Julie Osk, who is one of my co-authors in our new book, The Mobile Mind Shift, writes about, is what are they doing? What are they feeling? Where are they? Are they, happy? Are they sort of concerned? Are they in a hurry? Are they sad? Or maybe they're anxious or angry, or maybe they're just trying to have a good time. You need to know the emotional context. You need to know if they've got 5 seconds or 20 seconds or an hour, which nobody has, as you know. So that's an important part of understanding and analyzing a mobile moment. Now, as technologists, we have to care a lot about how to deliver value. What's the utility that I can deliver? What's the benefit I can bring and the value it brings to me? And in order to do that, this is where I need to refactor, rethink my back-end systems. I need to provide access to the data. I need to overcome that objection that says I can't get to the data. So this is the same journey that we just saw a minute ago through a travel day, but instead of showing just the moments, it shows what core transaction systems is it tapping into. And again, I'll blow it out a little bit here. So booking reservation, we're going to have to get into the reservation system. However, I may want to provide an additional service because that's a loyal customer, so I might also need to tie into the loyalty system. For an upgrade, I need to tie in loyalty and flight systems. When I'm here actually issuing this upgrade, I need to also tie into this reservation system as well to find out if that person, because of the amount of money they spent on the ticket, is really more able to get an upgrade than somebody who spent less money on a ticket. So the integration into these back-end systems is very expensive. At American Airlines, Phil Easter runs that mobile app for American Airlines, and he has to negotiate with 12 different back-end systems owners every time he wants to roll out a new feature on the American Airlines app, which of course he has to do multiple times a quarter, because he's got iOS, he's got Android, he's got dot releases, sometimes he has wholesale platform upgrades, and so he has a lot of work to do to negotiate with those back-end service owners. And then for their part, the back-end service owners have to create the right access, the right APIs. They have to build these very atomic APIs that are stateless, for those of you that pay attention to this stuff, so that I can serve them at scale, at internet scale. So if I've got a bad travel day, I might have 100 or 1,000 times the volume, the transaction volume on that back-end system. And so, as you might imagine, that's a big planning and execution challenge. That's where the money gets spent. So to do this, you're going to need what we call systems of engagement. And I'm going to break this down for you in just one way today. There's probably 2 or 3 ways to think about it. You need to think about the delivery model, for example. The web delivery model is horrible for mobile, so we can take that offline. But there's also all this additional functionality that flows into that mobile moment. So for example, there's a lot of information that comes from the device. We know where someone is. Maybe we're going to take a picture and we're going to decode that. There's a lot of information that can flow in or out through social. I may want to share my experience. I may want to learn something. I may want to find out who else is engaged in this activity. There's a tremendous amount of information then in this arena of connected products that also flows in. If I know, for example, in the Nest thermostat, which is a programmable thermostat, where someone's at home most of the day. I might know something about when they're home, when they're not home. I might want to know something about whether they're on vacation. I might want to know something about what the ambient temperature is or what the temperature outside is. And so all this information flows into this system of engagement. Then, of course, as we mentioned, we have to provide access to these systems of record. There's a lot of additional third-party services, external services, whether it's maps or weather or payment. You're not going to invent everything yourself. You're going to bring in things that make the mobile moment valuable, so a lot of integration. There's content, as we talked about, curated, personalized content that's relevant to me. And all of that is going to flow into an analytics engine so we can do something meaningful with it. We're going to put a different feature, a different offer, a different screen layout in front of somebody. So United Airlines, for example, when you open up that application and you're in the airport, it gives you a different home screen than it does when you're not in the airport, because it knows you're in the airport. Therefore, your need is more likely to be, where's the gate? And can I get an upgrade? Rather than, what's the status and do I need to make a booking? So it changes the experience, it personalizes the experience based on the context. And what results then, and what people expect, and what the mobile mind shift demands, is this context-rich, personalized experience. And if I don't deliver that, if I just take the web, which is deeply impersonal, very self-service, not service, and I shrink it down, I've not accomplished the goal. I've left this gulf for somebody else to flow into, and that's what's happening. All right, so when you think about the investments here, a traditional investment stack for systems of record looks like this. We start with the transactions, and we kind of work our way up, and the user experience and kind of the data exposure, even the software is a very thin layer on top. But when you think about systems of engagement that really create mobile moments and great experiences in those mobile moments, it's upside down, it's topsy-turvy. We start with the moment, we start with the experience in that moment, we start with the task in that moment, and we work down from there. There's a lot more software, there's a tremendous amount more data. There's, I think, over time, less infrastructure because I'm not necessarily owning all of the infrastructure to deploy the service. I'm using a cloud provider to scale things up to internet scale. So there's less reliance on your own hardware. There's a lot more reliance on your own software. And in fact, as my colleague John McCarthy likes to say, software becomes a defining characteristic of your brand experience, or as he says, software is the brand. So this is a mindset for business technology strategy in mobile moments. So lastly, you're not going to get this done in a normal waterfall, one release every 3 years mindset. You're only going to get this done if you start with just enough to get going and then learn as you go. Because if you think you know what your customer wants, you probably got it wrong. So what we found, we wrote a book recently called The Mobile Mind Shift, which will be out in May. In all of the interviews, that what people were doing was adapting an agile process, not just for development, but for business. And so they created these teams of business product owners, designers, developers, and technical people of all kinds, API development and security and others. And they used an agile process, which really means do a rev every 2 weeks. And they did releases almost always about every 3 months. And here's the process they used. They identify the mobile moments in context. They design the service. They design the mobile engagement in that mobile moment. And part of that is prioritizing which ones you do. Then they engineer their platforms and their processes and their people. And I'll give you one quick example. At Intercontinental Hotels Group, they do this process. They've got 20 people. They've got 8 on the business side and 12 on the technology side. And what happens is when the business people want a new piece of functionality and the technology people say, well, we can do that, but we need some time to build the API, the business people know what that means. They're aware, they're involved, they're committed to the product. Therefore, they're willing to fund the back-end development to give access to the data. It's a very different mindset than has historically been used in web or certainly in any internal scenarios. So the engineering is as much a responsibility of the business outcome owner as it is the technology organization. Sometimes the engineering is actually of your processes. So when you think about field service, if you mobile enable field service, you can cut a lot of steps out of a field service process. Dispatch can almost go away. You know, after service data entry can go away. You can collapse what it takes to actually accomplish a field service event by empowering that field service agent with the information they need to get it done the first time right when they're there at the customer site. That requires process re-engineering in the whole field service process. So IT can't do that alone. Field service has to do that. That's why engineering is so challenging. And then lastly, if you're not building analytics in, then you don't really know if you're being successful or not. So you can't make a business case for more investment unless you know what the outcome is. So you build analytics in from the top. At Intuit, they have a mantra that says you don't ship without analytics. So you're not allowed to release a new feature until it is instrumented to generate data that you can then capture and analyze to improve it over time. So all of this happens in an agile way. Nobody starts with a big requirement. Everybody starts small and grows. And if they don't do that, then they fail. They put a lot of stuff out there and turns out no one uses it. So this has become not just a best practice, but really the only practice in mobile moment identification and success. Anyway, one big payoff, which is to be there in your customers and your employees' mobile moment so they don't turn somewhere else. You have the choice. You can be there or not be there. With the mobile mind shift, you have to be there. So thank you. The book will be out in May. I think we have time for questions, maybe? Yeah?
We're over time.
I'm sorry.
We are. Yep, we are. But thank you anyway, Ted. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.